Good morning, everybody. We'll start in a few minutes from now. We're just waiting for some more people to join us. Okay, Renuka, shall we rock and roll?
Yeah.
Javed, can you just move to the next slide, please? So just a few instructions for all of you. Please be on mute during the presentations. Please use the chat feature if you have any questions. Please make a note of your questions and ask during the Q&A session. Please ask questions which are relevant to the specific topic in this. On this day, it's caring for the caregivers. If possible, please sit in a quiet place with less disturbance. Sometimes it is not possible, but then you need to please keep your microphone on mute. In case of any technical issues, which might happen, please be patient. We'll resume as quickly as possible. And if we all get disconnected for some reason, please log in back with the same link. Are you able to see my screen as yet?
Yes, Shankar, it's showing Shankar iPad.
Yes, thank you.
Shankar, I am not able to see your screen. I don't know about others.
1 minute.
Me neither. Yes.
All right, now I think you can see my screen. All right, thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Shankar Subramanian. I'm the India representative for World MS Day for MSSI. I welcome you all. The theme for this year. One minute. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, the theme for this year is MS Connections, and it's a great honor to have been taken this great given this great responsibility of guiding the chapters to have an effective campaign, and what a campaign it has been. So in 2009, the MS International Federation and its members initiated the first World MS Day. Together, we have reached hundreds of thousands of people across the world, focusing on a range of campaign themes. Each campaign is developed in collaboration with an international working group of member representatives. Currently, the representatives are from India, Egypt, Ireland, Argentina, Spain, UK, Greece, Australia, and the USA. So a little bit about the campaign, MS Connections. It's a very interesting theme where every year we can give it a different focus. So some of the areas that we wanted to focus is on stigma, challenging social barriers, and the stigma that can affect people, that can leave people affected by MS feeling lonely and isolated. Communities, building communities that support and nurture people affected by MS. And this year, we have been very fortunate to connect with the local governments and have a lot of programs with them as well. Promoting self-care and healthy living with MS. This was last year where we did a lot of work in the area of mandalas, meditation, yoga, and advocacy, which again this year we have been focusing on, and research as well. So this year we also had a program on clinical trials as part of our World MS Day event. So we had a lot of fun as well, and our social media was all buzz with pictures of persons with MS and their caregivers. We started off the whole World MS Day with this month with a program on self-care and wellness for caregivers. And since then, we have been having a massive amount of activities in each chapter, both on the webinars as well as on the social media. So you can see there's a plenty of activities and fun and involvement of the MS persons. And we had experts also, doctors and specialists come and engage with us. We had our medical advisory committee also part of one of our webinars, and we also focused on one of the current crises that we are facing, which is COVID. And in spite of the COVID situation, in spite of the dark situation, it was a very bright month for persons with MS. So there's lots of messages from our doctors, and we had a lot of fun as well on using the Instagram apps, and we had some nice little apps made by filters made by MSIF, and we had some fun with that. And we are also very thankful to all the Bollywood celebrities and various celebrities, actors from various fields who have come and supported us and shared their message of solidarity with persons with MS. And we have a packed day today. At this point of time, parallelly, there are 2 webinars happening, and back to back, there's a lot of events happening today. And we're going to end with a MS Choir at 6:30 today. So these are some of the programs scheduled later today. And please do join us. Please, be connected with us, and please encourage all the people who have put this wonderful programs together. It gives me great pleasure to have with us Dr. Nimesh Desai. Dr. Desai is a psychiatrist and a qualified public health professional in public service academic career for nearly 40 years, having served at the faculty of NIMANS, Bangalore, and AIIMS Delhi. He has been at the IHBAS Delhi for 22 years, initially at the head of Department of Psychiatry and Medical Superintendent as director since 2010. He has nearly 100 research papers, many research monographs, and has 5 national awards for original research. He works actively with NGOs and community-based outreach programs, including radio and TV. He is also with the committees and advisory panels of national agencies like NHRC, NDMA, NCW, ICMR, and others. Dr. Nimesh Desai, we are so honored to have you with us. Along with Dr. Desai, we also have Bhavna Issar, founder and CEO, Bhavna Partners and Caregivers, Saathi. Bhavna comes with nearly 22 years of experience in diverse global companies as a consultant, an HR leader, and a passionate person with diverse interests. She brings practical experience and accomplishments inside organizations along with a depth of professional knowledge, which she continues to challenge and build. She is the founder and CEO of Sambhavna, a business consulting firm that specializes in organization development and HR, and Caregivers Saathi, a social enterprise that aims at to create an ecosystem of well-being for the informal caregivers, for the primary caregivers to a family member and terminally ill or with chronic medical conditions. Bhavna, we are so grateful for you for joining us today, and we'll be hearing from both of you soon. Thank you so much, Bhavna. So let me stop my presentation. And I hand over the stage to Mr. Viresh Oberoi, the President of Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, to deliver his welcome address. So Viresh Oberoi, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Shankar. and my welcome to all the 81 participants who are there on this call today. Thank you very much for joining us on this wonderful Sunday morning. While I would not like to play down on the negatives of the pandemic that we are going through, and there are a number of negatives, I would like to sort of focus on the few positives that we have. And one, of course, is in terms of the fact that all of us can assemble here today and participate at this beautiful event, which is possible, I would imagine, because of this pandemic and our innovative reaction to this, and to people like Zoom who have enabled such a platform to be made available to us. So far on World MS Day, our 8 chapters, each one of them would organize events during the course of the month, culminating in a major event on the 30th of May. Today, because of this pandemic and because of our sort of innovative reaction to it, it is possible for all of us to participate at all the events that the chapters have been holding. So much so that I think yesterday there was a clash between Pune and Chennai, and both of them held events at the same time. And there are some of our people, and I know for a fact that Renuka had 2 screens open so that she could attend and participate, both of them at the same time. But the good news once again is in terms of the fact that all of these are being recorded. And being recorded, they will be put up on social media. They will be available to you so that you can, at your leisure, at your convenience, go through each one of these events, which are wonderful events that have been organized. Let me sort of go back in time a little bit, which is in terms of World MS Day. And as Shankar mentioned, this came about in 2009. That the MSIF, which is the MS International Federation, which is this umbrella organization, decided that, we need to celebrate or have a day called World MS Day, which is the 30th of May, across the globe. And the objective very much is in terms of the fact that the MS movement, which is has an annual campaign to raise awareness of the condition and to support and connect the over 3 million people living with it worldwide. It is a day to celebrate global solidarity and hope for the future. So this really is what World MS Day is all about, and it is being celebrated all over the globe today. Though of course the build up to it has been during the whole month of May, and a number of events have been held, which Shankar did make mention of. Also, he did make mention of the fact that we come up with a theme for World MS Day every year. And the theme for 2020-2022 is connections, or MS connections. So building community connections, self-connection, and connections to quality care. So we in MSSI picked up quality care and put up a project plan to MSIF on care to the caregiver. They readily accepted this and gave us a grant, which was then taken forward. So Shankar was selected as a who has been selected as a World MS Day representative, conceptualized and executed the plan with this team from the chapters, which is culminating today. While this was happening during the month of May, one of our past presidents, Firdaus Vandrewala, was approached by a Tata colleague of his called Sunil Bandhu, who introduced us to caregiver Saathi and to its founder Bhavna, who we requested to help create the MS Caregiver Guide, which Dr. Desai will launch later today. So, and Bhavna, besides helping us, is also a speaker today, and I'm happy to see her at this event. I mentioned MSIF earlier because of the fact that it's a wonderful umbrella organization, which has members such like us from India at the MSSI and over 40 other national organizations who are its members. And we have, in the recent past, taken or played an active role in MSIF. So just to give you an example, Renuka, who is a national secretary, is a member of the CEO Advisory Committee of MSIF. Mamta from Hyderabad is a member of the International Resource Alliance Working Group. Shankar, as you know, is a representative at WMSD. Dr. Kameshwar Prasad and Siva Kumar from Chennai are in the Essential Medicine List Working Group. And Meenakshi from Delhi is in another international working group. I myself are on a number of, or have a number of roles to play in MSIF. One, of course, as a member on the board of directors. I'm also the board champion for confident and informed decision making, along with Anna from Spain. And I very recently joined the fundraising committee of the board of MSIF. Now we are all contributing primarily to the global movement, each one of us who are associated with the MSIF. But we are also at the same time learning from them and also sharing the India story. And the India story is very, very different to the primarily the European and the American story, which most of these members organizations are from. So we are sharing with them what happens in India, what the problems in India are. And when I say India, I mean the SAARC countries in general. So having reached out to them, let me also say that they have been very, very supportive of what we are doing here. And as a matter of fact, 3 years ago, we held a workshop in Delhi, which was attended by many of you and which was funded and facilitated by MSIF. They sent on 2 people from the UK to run this program. And from that workshop, we came out with an advocacy program. And that advocacy program we have been taking forward. It's a wonderful program that we have been running. We even hired Javed, who's on this call, as a full-time project director for that. We even had a social media consultant who came and joined us to broadcast this. We had people from the marketing and communication field who were part of this and who continue to be part of this. The focus very much was on the recently added MS to the RPWD Act. And how is it that we can take advantage of this inclusion by the government of India, and how can our MSPs take advantage of this? We ran with 8 strategic objectives during the last 1 year, and now in the second year of this advocacy program, we have culled it down to 3. There is capacity, and the 3 are. One is capacity building at chapter level, and this is extremely important because unless we are able to build this capacity at the chapter level, any initiative that we take on will flounder and will not succeed. Second, of course, is to focus on the RPWD Act. I mean, this is where we started from. And once again, it is to focus on this very much and to see that whatever the government of India gives is taken by us to the maximum. And if they have given, and if they have some rules which deprive some of our MSPs, then to reach out to them and to share with them how they're depriving the people that this RPWD Act was meant to help. And this is something that we are going to be focusing on here too. And third, of course, we did it earlier, but this is going to be one of the 3 strategic objectives. And the third one is everyone who has MS must be aware of this. And finally, fundraising. There's nothing that can happen unless we are able to sustain, and for that fundraising is required. I made mention of the fact that I joined the MSI fundraising committee, and that is for me to learn and for me to share and to see in terms of how we can tap into fundraising and how we can build upon this. Let me close with a couple of other points. One is Deepa. I don't know how many of you know. Deepa is this wonderful lady who lives in Bombay. She has MS. She reached out to us and we said that, look, can you help us understanding your capabilities and your strengths? Can you help us to build a strategy for the national MSSI? And let me share with you that she is currently doing this. It's a 5-year strategy plan. And I think we need to have a set of strategy plan with us so that we can complement what the chapters are doing and see how we can reach out to the unserved states of this country and create further awareness. Lastly, we have been approached by MSIF very, very recently to join the MS Progressive Alliance. Now, the MS Progressive Alliance has been set up to speed up the development of treatments for progressive MS and to understand and stop progression. There are 5 managing members who have each contributed a little less than $1 million each, who have set up this, and we have been invited to join this alliance. Of course, the MSIF is clear that we will not be able to contribute the sort of money that these other members have done, and they will waive that for us. But we are still looking at, in terms of the fact, how we can contribute to this alliance and how we can take advantage of the outcomes of the alliance. So while this is something that is being studied by us today, and we will get back to them. Let me close by saying thank you very much, all of you, for being here today. And I see the number has risen to 94 who are today on the call. And I'm sure with the help of social media, we will reach out to more and achieve the primary aim, which is to create awareness for MS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oberoi, for those wonderful, inspiring words. Now, I would love to invite Dr. Nimesh Desai, Director, Institute of Human Behavior and Applied Sciences, to talk about caring for caregivers. Sir, the stage is all yours. Over to you, sir. Yes, we can hear. Just unmute yourself, sir. 1 minute. 1 minute, sir. Can you please unmute Dr. Desai? 1 minute. Javed, could you please make Dr. Desai co-host?
Did that now. Yeah, I think. Okay, cool. Okay, Mr. Shankar Subramaniam, Mr. Vinesh Oberoi, Renuka Malakar, and a whole lot of other new friends. Listening to both Mr. Shankar Subramaniam and Mr. Vinesh Oberoi particularly, it's exciting. It's exciting to join this journey that all of you have been taking together as MSSI and with MSIF for quite some time, and I must say, in such an organized, visionary fashion. I'm truly impressed. Very briefly, I come here from 2 or 3 loci. One, as Renuka ji and I discovered in our chats in person before this epidemic thing happened, from the perspective of caregivers' movements in psychiatry and mental health services, or indeed in larger issues of medicine and all healthcare services. Fortunately, I think at all levels, the caregivers' movements are picking up really, really quick and strong. And it has so happened that from schizophrenia to alcoholism to drug abuse to HIV, the overlapping condition, to a few other conditions, and of course, all IDDs, intellectual and developmental disability disorder issues, I have variably been linked and associated more for my learning, really, as a professional with the caregivers movements. I don't think I need to say too much about why I'm convinced that it's mutual learning and more for us professionals, because of the concept that while some of us may have or may claim to have the technical expertise, the lived-in expertise, the lived-in experience and expertise of the persons concerned with any such condition and the caregivers is almost entirely different and should actually complement the technical expertise at all levels. And so that's the firm conviction that I come with. It so also happens that besides my psychiatric practice at NIMHANS or AIMS, at IBAS being a neuropsychiatry institution, I have ended up seeing cases of MS also in clinical care. I hope my colleague, Dr. Suman Kushwaha, the head of neurology IBAS, is here. So might be the other neurology colleagues, and maybe they can join in the discussion later. I was also so glad to hear about what Mr. Shankar Nayan said about the theme, MS Connections, and the whole issue of themes, actions within that, stigma, advocacy, research, all of that. I couldn't but help thinking that the MS society does seem to think more organic and physical than in terms of what we mental health guys. And so what you refer to as MS Connections, in mental health for last few years, we have been referred to as mental health partnerships, as Bhavna will bear me out. Uh, I'm only musing uh, whether it's good to use all concepts. You want to not only make connections, but you also want to build partnerships. And so, if I might say, maybe the next stage is about building partnerships and not only making connections. Or maybe you already have that in mind. What I'm very impressed about in Mr. Viresh Oberoi's brief but extremely succinct narrative is a couple of things. I was about to highlight when he started and spoke about MSSI and MSIF as to how the issues of caregivers in any such situation, and for MSSI in its own immediate context, the issues would be very different across countries and cultures. And so the cross-cultural issues of caregiver movement and caregiver benefits or the struggles was on my list. And I was thrilled to hear him say on his own what I've kind of been saying ad nauseum. The American and the European experience about all such health conditions, especially about caregiver movement, is very, very, very different. And I'm sure you realize that. I think it's time we concretize that. And so I was so impressed hearing Mr. Viresh Oberoi say that we not only pick up lessons from our European and American colleagues, but also have a lot of stories to share with them about what happens in India and South Asia. If anything, this pandemic has taught us the idea of it being one world. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it being one world, is truly coming true in this pandemic. And yet, for whatever it is worth, for mutual benefit, to recognize the different styles in various aspects of healthcare or social service is crucial. And there, with India and South Asia, if not entire Afro-Asian space, has a huge number of advantages as compared to a few disadvantages. And so that genuine exchange and enrichment program, I'm so convinced from listening to Mr. Viresh Oberoi, will happen. I was indeed, Oberoi Saab, thinking that one of the research projects you might want to do from MSSI with its own funding or with MSIF is really a good scientific research study on caregivers' experience, including what helps and what may not be helpful, and the issues of the caregivers, the issue of care for the caregivers across countries and cultures. And since you are in such a good position, you individually and the entire MSSI team in MSIF, I think it'll be wonderful to have that study in a very well-organized manner. I'm sure Bhavna and I or a few others would be very happy to help you design, execute that study with all your connections and experience. But that's really one part that's wonderful. The other thing that truly impressed me in Mr. Shankar's narrative was, besides all the serious activities, was also a lot of mention and highlighting of the fun part. Again, almost all endeavors and certainly endeavors like caregiver movements need to have equal amount of fun as compared to all the serious tasks. And so that is something truly impressive. I'm hoping that we will talk about in the discussion the issues of the carers. I will only want to flag that it's an established research fact, again, across cultures, certainly in our cultures, unfortunately or fortunately, both, more, that women end up being the caretakers. The mother, the sister, the wife, the daughter-in-law, the aunt, or whoever else. And so the gender issues in caregivers' role is something that we might, I'm sure many of you or all of you are aware individually and as an organization, but maybe that also needs to be brought in this booklet that we are going to see being released today. I am positive Bhavna and her team have referred to that. It also occurred to me as Viresh ji was saying what he was saying about there being clash of meetings, and if I heard right, our friend Renuka being accessing two different meetings on two screens, I couldn't but help thinking of multitasking, that I'm sure Renuka is, but also how almost all caregivers of especially conditions like MS and many others even if they are not inherently multitasker, how they need to develop the skill and the ability to become multitaskers, which again is a double-edged sword. Learning in the multitasking skills must be very helpful, and yet, if I might say, that is what can add to the long-term ill effects, including burnout. Can I also flag an idea that I've been kind of developing for quite some time, especially in respect of RPWD, and I do believe, Vireshji, that MSSI and many other organizations and advocacy groups, I think, needs to get this across to the government, at least for the next version of the RPWD. I, for one, was hoping when it was being revised that this aspect will figure, but it has not. Recognition in the act about different types of caregivers. There are at least 4 that I have been able to think of. Immediate nuclear family-based caregivers, the informal extended family or neighborhood caregivers, which may not be for long term, but say for a few weeks or a few days or a month or 2 months that people agree to be the caretaker. Third are the paid lay persons who are employed as caregivers. And the fourth, which are very few, I think, there's a different angle to that, paid professionally trained caregivers. Of course, we need to have more and more certification courses for that. Now, this recognition of the 4 different kind of caregivers, I think, has huge implications at almost every level, but mainly policy and the financial issues. There are details of that we might come to again in the discussion. And my last point, again, I was so impressed to hear Vireshji talk about the geographical spread that's already being attempted across different states in a large, diverse country like ours. Can I also add, if it's not already on your minds and on your agenda, that my view, and I think supported by evidence, in our country especially, a lot of caregiver movements still remain, and forgive me for the word inverted commas, reasonably elitist. Upper strata, upper middle class, at best middle class, some trained professionals and the group. Large part of the middle class, or lower middle class, and the socioeconomically disadvantaged, organized part of the society, forget the unorganized part of the society, do not even have a sense of this caregiver movement as we know it. Of course, there are mechanisms that they have of their own for caregiving and even support for caregivers and all that stuff. But as we are transiting into a society of whatever we will be in the next few decades, for good or bad, it seems to me, if I might say, that like all caregiver movements, one of the challenges for MSSI might be to actually have the trickle-down effect in all strata of the society. Hearing all of you today, I have no doubt that it will happen in due course with whatever bumps and difficulties we might have. Vireshji, Shankarji, Renuka, everybody else, I will stop there. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's actually been, like the rest of my belief system and effort, it's been educational. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Desai. I think, for a long time, we have not been able to put a spotlight on the caregivers. We've been only focusing on, just a moment, please. Sorry about that, there's some background noise. Okay, so for a long time, we have been only focusing on persons with MS and bringing about the focus on them and trying to highlight some of their issues and bringing about awareness. But this year, we have been really been able to put the spotlight on the caregivers who have been working so hard at the back end, and they are the unsung heroes that we have. And I think after your talk, what we could make out is that there is so much work to be done in that direction as well, and it has been ignored by all of us so far. And I think we have to get up and run a parallel movement for caregivers as much as we are doing for the persons with MS. So thank you very much for those inputs and directions, sir. So we have a very interesting event right now, an exciting event, and that is our launch of our caregiver guide. So let me share my screen. And before I go across this, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the background of this caregiver guide. And when we, Renuka, me and Mamta and a few of us, we were brainstorming on what project we could do this World MS Day. And the spotlight was on the caregivers. We realized that there's no resource for the caregivers to rely upon. And we said, this is something that we need to work on. And we spoke to MSIF, and they were very keen, they were very kind to give us a small grant with which we were able to start this particular project. And we had a very little timeline within which we were able to put this across. And the whole project was directed by Tanya Raj. Can we have Tanya on the screen, please? Tanya, could I have your video, and could I have you on the screen? And could I have Renuka and Mamta as well on the screen? And these are the people who have made this happen. They worked overnight. I know Tanya has worked till 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. on one of the days, and it's not been easy. We have had a busy situation in Bangalore with the COVID scenario, very overwhelming with work and everything. And with all this, a lot of research has gone into this. And Renuka and Mamta have been constantly, been overseeing it. Can we do this? Can we do that? And can we change this part here? Can we change this graphic here? And to add to that, the fantastic team of Honeycomb. I think we have Nofal here. I think if Nofal can be highlighted and can be put on the screen. Yes, Nofal and his entire team with Sri Kumar, Vinay, Shafiq, and Prasoon. They have kept away all of the work and put this as their thing, because we said we have a tight deadline, and at whatever cost we need to bring this across. So let's do one thing. Let's all get our videos on. And when I say 1, 2, 3, I would like you all to touch your screen. And as you touch your screen, we're going to jointly open the toolkit. All right, everybody, can we have your videos on, everybody? Javed, let me know when everybody's video is on. Renuka, can you see all the videos switching on at this point of time? Maybe in the grid view, the speaker view, it does not happen. Yes? Okay.
Yes,
1,
I can see on the side.
2, and 3. And here's our caregiver guide. Wow. And let's give a big round of applause to this wonderful work. We'll be sharing this with all the chapters, and this can be customized. We can translate this into different languages, and it can be further edited, and we can add more sections to it as we go about it. And very useful material that has been put across, and I'm sure this will be a value add for the caregivers. And of course, my dear friend Venki, you were able to put this in this format which we could launch today. It is really looks as if we are actually opening a book and all of us are seeing this. So really a fabulous job, I should say. So let's give ourselves a pat on the back, team. So good job, guys. And this is really amazing. So yes, we'll be circulating this. We'll also make hard copies of this. And this should be soon available to all our caregivers. All right. We have another interesting thing that we have also put up today. So let me just stop sharing my screen and then ask Tanya to share her screen now. So this is a video that we have put across and dedicated to all our caregivers. And Nazia, I would like you to be on the video, and we'd like to highlight your video, Nazia, because you and Tanya have put this together. So a big round of applause to Tanya and Nazia for this wonderful video that we're going to make specifically dedicated to all the caregivers here. And over to you, Tanya, to share the screen.
Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes. Yeah. So because 7 ways to thank your caregiver, you can take your tips and from the MS persons, and you can show us on the social media how you have thanked your caregiver. We'll be very happy to hear from you. Many times we take our caregivers for granted, and only they know what they go through. I'm sure from time to time it's a very nice thing to thank them. If you'd like to thank your caregivers as we are running this video on the chat, please go ahead and put it on the chat that whom do you want to thank. Go ahead and do that. Type into the chat people whom you would like to thank who have made a difference in your life. And when we say caregivers, it could be our doctors, nurses, our paramedical staff, physiotherapists, our family members. It includes all this ecosystem of wonderful people who make the life of the caregivers fulfilled. Lots of messages coming up already. So a big thank you to all the caregivers. You are our heroes. All right. So that was so touching and how so heartwarming. We've already got a lot of messages on chat about people who'd like to thank their parents, their doctors, and that's really such a touching moment. Great. Now we have another superstar waiting on the wings to address us. We have Bhavna, who's we're going to be talking about well-being and healing for caregivers. Bhavna, over to you. The stage is all yours.
So I'm going to wait a moment till my heart can stop beating as fast. The last video just filled my heart and touched me very deeply. What my introduction does not talk about is the fact that that I've been a caregiver myself for many years, about 30 years now. And it started first with an obvious caregiving, I think, for an illness, with when my father had multiple system atrophy, which is a neurological condition in the family of something similar to multiple sclerosis, but slightly different as well. And one of the stories that I wanted to share, okay. So मेरी अपनी कहानी में ये है कि मैं भी एक केयरगिवर हूँ और मैं भी एक देखभाल करता हूँ और मैं बहुत कोशिश करूँगी कि मैं इंग्लिश और हिंदी दोनों में बात कर सकूँ, लेकिन अक्सर ऐसा होता है कि मेरी हिंदी थोड़ी सी हिंदुस्तानी टाइप की है, so I hope that works. I will do my best. I'm here because predominantly I'm the founder of Caregiver Saathi. But there is a backstory to this. The reason that I founded Caregiver Saathi was that many, many years ago, when I wanted to do something in the honor. Sorry, I'm just overwhelmed. When I wanted to do something to remember my father, I looked up many organizations. And MSSI was one such organization that I saw more than 10 years ago. And I was very impressed with the work that MSSI is doing. And at that time, I wasn't close to MSA because I wasn't the primary caregiver to my father. My mother was the primary caregiver. And I was the caregiver to the caregiver. So I was my mother's caregiver. And what I thought about at that time was that caregivers go through their own stuff. And caregivers also need caregivers. And that led to Caregiver Saathi. So how can we be a companion? How can we hold hands? And जो देखभाल करता है, उसका हम कैसे साथ निभा सकें? उसके हम कैसे साथी बन सकें? And that is the essence for Caregiver Saathi. Needless to say, I am delighted to hear what Viresh and Nimesh, Dr. Nimesh had to say in their introductions. I will only be reinforcing some of the ideas. Without doubt, what struck me about Viresh's introduction was connections are important, especially with the existing wisdom. And it is yet important to bring our own experience and our own wisdom. And seeing me overwhelmed, my daughter brings me a glass of water. That is what caregiving is about, I suppose. Thank you. So I liked what Viresh said in terms of a balance between the passion for caregivers and a pragmatism that we do need finances and funds. So thank you for bringing that in your conversation. I think that balance is beautiful, and that balance is quite an inspiration also. To Nimesh, thank you. Thank you for being an advocate and bringing so much clarity in so many ways. I have always loved interacting with you. I particularly like how you reinforce the love and affection and well-being needs for caregivers. And I think the socio-cultural context in India is unique. मुझे किसी को बताने की ज़रूरत नहीं है कि हमारी कहानियों में ये कहा जाता है कि जो देखभाल करता है, जो सेवा करता है, सेवा में ही मेवा है, और सेवा करने वाले को इसे एक नोबल एक्ट समझ के कर लेना चाहिए, इसके बारे में सोचना नहीं चाहिए. And that can be a lot of pressure. We do have lots of stories of people that have sacrificed themselves for caregiving for their families, etc. And that is an unconscious pressure too. So yes, Indian context is unique and special. And भारतीय परंपरा के हिसाब से हम अगर सोचें तो हम किसी भी चीज़ को अपना सकते हैं और किसी भी चीज़ में घुल सकते हैं. And with that spirit, I think we can integrate with the Western wisdom, and we can share what we know. So lived experience is important in as much as technical professional experience is important. And we would like to marry the two or integrate the two. Today, I would also like to share with you what Caregiver Saathi does. The fundamental approach in Caregiver Saathi is that the healing and well-being of the caregiver. Caregiver की जो देखभाल करता है या सेवा करता है, उसकी अपनी सेहत कितनी इम्पोर्टेंट है या कितनी ज़रूरी है, और सिर्फ उसे ये कह देना कि आप अपना ध्यान रखो काफ़ी नहीं है. क्योंकि जो सेवा करता है या जो देखभाल करता है वो तो हर तरह की चीज़ का ध्यान रखता है या रखती हैं. तो उनका ध्यान रखने के लिए जो वेल विशर्स हैं, जो दोस्त हैं, जो कॉलीग्स हैं, उन्हें भी उन्हीं की तरह सोचना चाहिए. So with that, I will share with you a brief introduction about Caregiver Saathi and how we can look at the well-being of and healing of caregivers who have their own unique challenges. So family caregivers of those who are navigating terminal illnesses, chronic or other life-limiting conditions have unique challenges. On many occasions, they don't even have places where they can voice their difficulties. They do have mental health and emotional challenges because हमारे रिश्ते अलग अलग तरह के होते हैं, हमारी हिस्ट्रीज अलग अलग तरह की होती हैं और कई बार हम अपनी ड्यूटी अलग अलग तरह से लेते हैं एंड उसकी वजह से अलग अलग तरह के स्ट्रेसेस होते हैं और सिर्फ पेशेंट का ध्यान रखना ही एक चीज़ नहीं होती, कई सारी चीज़ें और होती हैं. So therefore, caregivers also need a support system and lots of love to each one of you for the wonderful things that you are doing, and we would love to support you in your journey. How do we do this? So like Videsh said, in these times and age, technology has enabled a lot of things, but सिर्फ technology से सब कुछ नहीं हो सकता, एक human connection की ज़रूरत भी है, एक ये जानने की ज़रूरत भी है कि कोई मेरा ध्यान रखता है और वो एक इंसान है. So we have awareness programs which are mostly online. We have a helpline, healing circles, which are support groups for patients, for not just for patients, but for caregivers, जिसमें caregivers अपनी बात कर सकें जो कि वो कई बार patients के सामने नहीं कर पाते हैं और उन्हें ये पता चल सके कि उनकी जर्नी में और दूसरे caregivers भी हैं जिन्होंने कई तरह की चीज़ें देखी हैं और वो support कर सकते हैं. Of course, social media, all of you are fantastic on Instagram and otherwise. So social media of different kinds. Information, कई बार हमें information ही नहीं मिलती. I remember जब मेरे पिताजी को MSA हुआ था सन 96 में, 96 और 95, हमारे पास कोई information या जानकारी का जरिया नहीं था. हमें एक सारा मैथिसन ट्रस्ट की न्यूज़लेटर यूके से आया करती थी पोस्ट में एंड ऑफ कोर्स आज हमारे पास इंफॉर्मेशन गूगल पे बहुत ज़्यादा है तो उसको भी स्ट्रीमलाइन करने की ज़रूरत है. एंड देन वी हैव एन ऐप एंड टेक्नोलॉजी एनेबल्ड प्लेटफॉर्म. आज तक हमने क्या किया है? The resources that we have built so far include that app and website, our training programs. We have a community where caregivers can join. And the most beautiful thing is that हमारी नज़र में caregivers are gentle warriors. They have a war to fight, but they fight it gently. So we want to tell their stories because हमें ये बात मालूम है कि कई सालों से stories and telling stories about yourself and telling stories, अपनी कहानी बताना और दूसरों की कहानियाँ सुनने से हमें सांत्वना मिलती है, हमें साहस मिलता है और हमें एक तरह की प्रेरणा भी मिलती है. So for comfort, for healing, for inspiration, listening to caregiver stories can be very empowering. So Gentle Warriors is our video conversations with caregivers and also a podcast. And I would love for all of you to come and tell your stories. The next is Compassionate Caring, which is our webinar series from experts so that caregivers can learn how to balance caregiving in which it is not at the cost of the caregiver. So it is compassion for caregivers and for the patient. Dr. Nimesh Desai has been a guest on one such webinar, and just yesterday we finished, day before we finished 31 such webinars. They are all available on YouTube. आप ज़रूर देखें and in fact give us feedback and we will be happy to design new webinars. Finally, one-on-one coaching for caregivers, family counseling, and a respite care program, which is done by volunteers. This is what we have, and I will focus now on a framework for well-being. अब किसी से कहा जाए कि भाई आप अपना ध्यान रखें, तो अपना ध्यान रखने के कई तरीके होते हैं और उसके कई भाग होते हैं। हम अपनी पूरी सेहत, स्वस्थ के 7 हिस्से या 7 एलिमेंट्स ऑफ वेलबींग देखते हैं, इन विच अगर आप कोर देखें या उसका सेंटर देखें, उस सेंटर में होती है हमारी फिजियोलॉजिकल यानी कि शारीरिक, स्पिरिचुअल यानी कि माय हिंदी इज वीक, स्पिरिचुअल यानी कि
आध्यात्मिक।
आध्यात्मिक see, this is why partnership is useful. Thank you for that. आध्यात्मिक और साइकोलॉजिकल यानी कि मानसिक एलिमेंट्स को जानना जरूरी है और इन चीज़ों का एक बैलेंस होना जरूरी है। ये हमारा कोर है, ये हमारा आंतरिक है, हमारे अंदर का है। और हमारे वेलबींग के कुछ हिस्से ये भी हैं जो दुनिया की तरफ हैं, या विच इज़ अ रिलेशनशिप विद द वर्ल्ड, जिसमें आती हैं सोशल, फिनेंशियल, लीगल, यानी कि सामाजिक, आर्थिक और न्यायिक। फाइनली हमारी जिंदगी का मकसद क्या है या हमें किस चीज़ में एक कंफर्ट मिलता है कि हमारा जीने का धर्म क्या है। That is life and work purpose, all of which is within our creative expression. यानी कि हम सबका एक अपना यूनिक एक्सप्रेशन है और अगर हम इन 7 भागों का ध्यान रख सकें, इन सब को एक बैलेंस में रख सकें, तो हमें स्ट्रेस होने का कम चांस है। So stress is caused when there is an imbalance in these elements of well-being. And if this stress is chronic and it is unaddressed, then it can cause mental health issues. If you remember what Dr. Nimesh said, कि long-term chronic stress that requires multitasking can actually lead to other issues. Therefore, building resilience, which can be done through some practices of the mind, body, and soul, are useful. And we help caregivers build that resilience, which is both physical and emotional resilience, because caregiving for long term can be hugely stressful for the caregivers. But as a parting shot, I would, there are many ways in which you can be involved, but since all of you are caregivers, I would just tell you that please participate in some of the activities that we do. And I would like to highlight here that we have a young intern, grade 10 intern, who has done some fantastic work to translate medical knowledge into awareness for multiple sclerosis. How can we tell a young teenager what multiple sclerosis is? And you will find that information on our social media, and please use it. That said, I'm going to stop this presentation, but leave you with a thought. Who is a caregiver? For the longest, I thought my mother was a caregiver. But when I look back, and in a session recently, I said that my father, even when he was on the bed, used to give my mother flowers and a safety pin every day so that she could tie her sari before she went to school. My mother was a teacher. And I think in many ways, my father was my mother's caregiver too. So we are all caregivers. It's just that some of us are physical caregivers and some of us are emotional caregivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavna. That was a wonderful session from you. A lot of insights and inputs. I think the resources that you put together, I'm sure will go a long way in supporting many of our caregivers. And MS Connections, this is what this is all about. It's about building these partnerships, like what Dr. Desai was saying. MS Connections equals to the partnerships that we are building as we going along. Probably we might not have connected, but for this, spotlight on caregivers. And this spotlight has developed many such connections. And I think we've just begun. The story has just begun. I think we have a long way to go. And I'm sure all these partnerships will develop into long-term relationships. And I'm sure that this will add value to all our persons with MS and their caregivers. Thank you very much, Bhavna, for sharing your ideas and thoughts. Renuka, it is time that we are able to facilitate a Q&A session. So could we also spotlight Renuka here along with me while we look at some of the queries and questions that are coming up. And we'd like to ask the audience. We have a panel of experts, and we also have Dr. Suman Kushwaha, who's also joined us, and Dr. Rahul, Dr. Gopi, many of colleagues of Dr. Desai were also with us. They could also pitch in. So if you want to ask a question, you could either raise your hand, and we could call you and get you to speak up, or you could also use the chat function to ask your question, and we can take a few questions. So the floor is open now to everybody to share your thoughts and ideas and questions. And
so
we'd like
Rajiv Kaur is asking, is stem cell treatment effective in MS?
Okay, we'd like to focus the questions on caregiving this time. I'm sure there's a lot of medical questions here. We don't have any neurological specialist, MS specialist at this point of time. So we'd like to focus on questions and queries involving caregivers. However, these questions are important questions, and we will be soon gathering all these questions from all the webinars and try to make a Q&A that could help all our friends.
Nina has raised her hand. I'm unmuting you, Nina. You can ask your question now.
Yes. Nina, you're unmuted. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. It's not
1 minute, Nina. Yeah. Go ahead, Nina.
It's not a question. It's an observation which I want to reinforce exactly what Dr. Desai said. In our culture, if a female has to give care to a male patient, that is expected, it's her duty. But if males are expected to give care to the female, then the question of divorce comes through. I need to highlight that gender issue. Okay?
Thank you, Nina. May I request Dr. Desai and Bhavna to comment on that? Dr. Desai, would you go first? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Just unmute yourself, yes. Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, you just need to unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Desai. Yeah.
Yes,
okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
If I got Ninaji's intervention correctly, I'm totally with her. In fact, if I might take that a step further, at some policy platforms for last decade or so, I've been trying to get exactly this: the logistic, the financial, and the other social official support mechanisms for family-based caregivers, which is one of the reasons why I made that differentiation across different categories. So that's one part, including the fact that I do believe, and I've tried this and failed till now, hopefully we'll all succeed at some point of time. But in a transitional society like ours, family-based caregivers must be recognized as actually people who are employed, because that lady or that gentleman who is the caregiver does not follow a vocation or go out and follow a profession. And so these efforts are made but not succeeded. The other part that I want to add is also I totally agree with her about, especially like I said, the middle class and the lower strata. Some of us, I mean, for my parents, my dad who is no more, we had to do that. For my mom who is on her own in Ahmedabad, we have had to do that. For an average middle class person to have lay paid caregivers is also not economically easy. It's a strain. And so the second point that I have is that at some stage, the state must pitch in to provide assistance for the paid caregivers, professionally trained or lay. And of course, the third issue is about really carrying out certification courses for generic issues of caregiving or condition-specific caregiving experience and training.
Yeah, Renuka, you would like to add here?
Yeah, the point that I would like to add here is in connection with what Dr. Desai is also saying. Like the National Skill Development Corporation, the Sector Skill Council for Persons with Disability, and MSSI has been talking with them. One is to create employment opportunities for people with MS, not just any disability, because MS is very unique. But after listening to all of you here, especially Bhavna and Dr. Desai, the thought that came to me is that, under the Sector Skill Council of Persons with Disability, they have a Sector Skill Council for elderly care. So I think it's about time for MSSI and organizations like IBAS and Caregiver Saathi to put together a joint sort of proposal and take it to the government to say that we need to have caregiver certification courses for chronic neurological disorders. I would also like to mention here that Tamil Nadu government, as per the Chennai chapter, the government has already started these certifications. And it's a very good step in the right direction. And together, we just need to take it at a higher level. So I think while the thoughts are there, it's in little pockets. The idea that we can come up with as an organization with the experts in this group and using the connection theme and collaborative approach is that how do we take it to the next level to benefit a larger sort of a group of people. So that is something I just wanted to add.
Right, thanks, Renuka. I have another question here, and this is from my friend Padma, who says that, good morning, I'm a caregiver too. In our culture, especially the mother is a natural caregiver. Even my closest family doesn't think I'm entitled to my me time. It makes me feel guilty sometimes to take time off what I can do and overcome this guilt. So Bhavna, would you like to share some thoughts on that?
I would, and if you will give me 1 minute for the previous question as well. Nina, thank you for raising a very, very important point about gender differences and how we look at it. Yes, it is indeed an issue where women are taken for granted for being caregivers, and sometimes women take that responsibility also. And they think that, so that is the stories part of what we said is our unconscious, right? That women think this is their lifelong responsibility, whereas men don't necessarily think that. Of course, there are differences in that. Individuals are different, but as a society, we have that issue. And I would like to work with you on that. I have made a note, and I do think that we should talk about it if it is easier for some individual to seek a separation of marriage simply on the basis that their partner is unwell. I think it is unfair, and law needs to be mindful of that. So I would like to take an action as a consequence of the point that you have raised. I don't know what this will mean, but I would like to work with a set of lawyers to help work that. That said, thank you, Padma. And mothers and women can very easily be made to feel guilty because we have an idea of who an ideal mother is. we know that on Women's Day and on Mother's Day and things like that, there are all kinds of social messages that say, you know, mothers come with capes and mothers can multitask. Like Nimesh said, that, you know, this multitasking is a trap. So I feel, yes, this whole putting mothers and women on a pedestal is such a trap. So when someone puts you on a pedestal, I think for you to be able to draw a boundary and say, no, this is a trap and I'm not going to be on this is fine. Yes, feeling guilty is an emotion. But the way that I look at feeling guilty is the person who feels guilty is someone who cares. If you didn't feel guilty, it means that you don't really care. So if you can see that you are feeling guilty and just let it wash over you and let the other people know that saying this or doing this makes me feel guilty, and let that time pass, it's okay. Because guilt is a natural human emotion. It's a good emotion, and it's okay to feel guilty.
Right.
Thank you, Bhavna. Yes, Renuka. Yeah.
There's an interesting question which I had got actually a couple of.
Sorry, Renuka, can I just join in there with Bhavna? Bhavna and I have this. See, the thing is, I agree. Guilt is a valuable sentiment and an asset. The only thing that I think caregivers might do well to remember is, as long as the guilt is constructively channelized, constructively for oneself and the person that one is caring for. Yes. If guilt is not constructively channelized or handled, Bhavna will agree, it can actually be terrible for the carer's mental health itself. And so, yes, so be very careful there. It's a minefield that one is walking.
Absolutely. And a healthy caregiver is absolutely essential.
All right. Renuka, over to you.
Yeah, so the next question is actually, I've put different questions in one big chunk. It's related to panic, feeling of anxiety. And this comes from a couple of people who are caregivers who have experienced this kind of a feeling during the COVID. Unfortunately, what they are saying is, while there are support groups, while there are helplines, while there are a Ministry of Health guidelines, and mostly the caregivers are reading this, there is so much information, it is only adding to the panic and the anxiety as to what information should I see first. Should I be looking at plasma banks? Should I be calling the mental health care helpline? Should I just deal with myself? So any tips that both of you or any of you could share on how do we sieve this and simplify? What would be, I know there is no one fixed solution, but is there anything you can think of which will help? Because this is a large segment of caregivers who are getting this information but don't know how to deal with it.
A few very concrete ideas. One, like it's true for all of us, especially for persons with difficult situations, MSPs and or caregivers, please ration your exposure to television and social media very strictly. Very quickly, we in-depth established this in the Bhuj earthquake. The effect of that onslaught of 24/7 TV channel is terrible on the affected population. In Bhuj and Kutch, it was locally affected population. Now we are all affected. So while pick up the news, yes, that's a requirement. Half an hour or 1 hour in the morning, in the evening, please shut out the rest of the thing. Watch TV for whatever else. Number two, like it is hinted, Renuka, unfortunately, there is mushrooming of what is called helplines. A COVID information helpline, logistics information helpline, counseling helpline, mental health helpline. So please differentiate as to where you want to go for what. Third, very crucial, telemedicine has been now officially notified in last March by the MCI and the Government of India. And so as part of that, not just telecounseling, audio or video included, but telepsychiatry and telemental health services are available both from public sector and private sector. And so if a caregiver has significant psychological or psychiatric symptoms, don't hesitate to reach out at least on teleservices, which can include a prescription, mind you. That might seem counterintuitive. Doctors themselves have had this difficulty, psychiatrists included, when it all started in last March or April, because we have had this dictum of having to examine the person and having to see the person before you prescribe. But then given the circumstances, if you have other conditions well recorded, even prescriptions, including prescription of psychotropic medication, is legally permissible, ethically possible, and clinically very, very doable.
Thank you.
Thank you,
May I
Dr.
build
Nimesh.
on that? I will
Yes.
just give one piece of experience from myself, which is that it is not possible for a long journey that you have to take where you don't have a map for you to anticipate everything in that journey. So let's say I have a hobby, and I'm going to take from my hobby. My hobby is motorcycle riding. So when you go on a long trip, let's say you want to climb a mountain, you don't know what's going to come on your way. You don't plan the whole thing because sometimes you don't have a map. So what can you do? You can look only 400 meters ahead of you. And I give this example always. So have your vision, or let's say you are driving in fog and you don't have visibility or line of sight. What will you do? You just put your 1 foot ahead at a time. So the limited visibility that you have, you take only that many steps, or you drive only that much. Recalibrate and restart. And for those of you who follow cricket, Rahul Dravid once said, all I have to do is every time take a fresh stance. So it's a new ball, take a fresh stance, 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time, with exactly what you need to do for just that day, not the whole journey. So that's what I would say.
Can I also say that, unfortunately, the reality is that in the last 13 or 14 months of the epidemic, including the last 6 to 8 weeks of the second wave, official or government public sector funded mechanisms for logistics or other needs of persons with disability and or their caretakers has been very, very low, and if at all available erratically. In my assessment, I have no doubt that on that issue, this country has failed its citizens. Persons with disability and their caregivers, like Renuka was raising from the questions, caregivers of a person with disability has anxieties about what the condition will end up being in a medical, one's own condition. There isn't. I'm hoping still that in next 6 months or 1 year, with the disability rights activism, that will get better, at least on the next occasion. But in this epidemic, we haven't dealt with it well at all.
I just have one more suggestion to give to all caregivers, which is this, that you don't have to solve the entire problem yourself. Find a Saathi for you, which means find a friend, build your emotional infrastructure. So that means find one person to whom you can say, this is what I need. Please find it out for me. I do not want to go through all the helplines. So your ability to ask for help is your biggest resource. So find that companion, find that friend who you can ask specifically. I want to know this, sort it out and tell me what I should do. That will be very helpful.
Very nice. That's very useful.
Thank you
Very
for the
nice.
inputs. Renuka, I think we should be mindful of the time. I think we have lots of questions as well, but we should look at winding up. So let us just take 2 questions, final questions, and we'll wrap up the session because it's been a long session. We started at 11 and now we're almost closer to the 12:30 mark. So one question to you, Dr. Desai, is that some of our caregivers, sometimes over a period of time, they get into panic attacks with a long time caregiving. So they've been put on medication from their psychotherapists and stuff like that as well. So any advice for long-term caregivers that you would like to suggest?
Sure. Briefly again, like Renuka,
Bhavna.
Bhavna was saying, thank you. Like Bhavna was saying, if step one, if you can find help within your own self. Most importantly, at step two, if you can find a buddy, if you can find a Saathi for that ventilation, great. But if that doesn't work, and if you have had to seek professional help, please don't be hesitant. A few quick clarifications about psychotropic medication. Psychotropic medications no longer are fundamentally addictive or only sleeping pills. Get out of those myths, please. Psychotropic medication for need not be lifelong. So in 1991, if I needed that by 2022 or late 2022, I should be able to talk to my psychiatrist and say, can I now go off this medication? So don't have these myths about psychotropic medication at all. But surely, psychotropic medication can only be one part of the help. One's own willpower, one's own resilience, buddies and Saathis, counseling and therapy if you require.
Thank you, Dr. Desai. And one last question to Bhavna. There's a question about, women being more resilient, in terms of caregiving, and they're able to take in a lot more pressure and patience. It is all kind of, like you said, cape wala situation. But when it comes to men as caregivers, sometimes, their nature of their job and whatever it is, caregiving is sometimes can be challenging, the patience level and all that. So any tips for male caregivers?
So, okay. I think this whole gender divide and this whole stereotyping, because all men are like this and all women are like this, is a very broad brush. So it's not necessarily true. Look at my own home. In my own home, one could always accuse me of being a very masculine woman, and my husband of being, although he's a big man, but he's a very feminine man, in the sense that he's a lot more nurturing and caring for my daughter than I think I'm overtly. But what that means is that each one of us has our masculine and feminine sides, and that each one of us can be a nurturing and caring caregiver, men and women. Our patriarchal society and our way of looking at men and women by defining them in specific roles just suppresses one side. So I do think that men have as much capacity for both multitasking, nurturing, caregiving as any woman has. In fact, men have often surprised me as well. So that's the first thing that I'd like to say. The second thing that I'd like to say is that it's important to recognize your individual difference and your individual needs. Patriarchy impacts men also in a bad way. This whole pressure of being the provider, this whole pressure of hiding your sadness and sorrow and pain holds men back. Your way of resilience is by giving expression to your emotions. So men who have to be strong all the time actually become brittle in that process. So if you really want to be resilient and strong, then give expression to your emotions, your unique creative expression, build emotional networks and infrastructure, have spaces where you can express your pain. It's okay to cry. Look at me, my presentation was an overwhelmed moment. I would have liked to be stronger and more contained, but I was moved, and so it's fine. And I would say that it is okay for men to say, I need help. So if we can do that, I think, I can't hear you, Shankar.
मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता है is the
Oh my God. Okay then.
So that's what we've been brought up, and sometimes that is overwhelming to hide our emotions and feelings, and we don't express ourselves because we feel that if we express ourselves, it makes us weak, and that can be quite overwhelming. So thank you very much.
That is so unfair. That is so unfair.
Very much, Bhavna. Yeah, Renuka, I would like to hand over the stage to you and for your closing remarks, and then we will close after that. Over to you, Renuka.
Thank you, Shankar. So there's so many thoughts going on in my head that I'm trying to close with a summary of what we learned in this last 1.5 hours. It's been very, very engaging for all of us, at least for me, it has been. But what I have noted is that through this webinar, which was Care for Caregivers, we have actually achieved 3 things. One is we have been able to express or explain the importance of the caregiver and how important it is to care for the caregiver, especially for chronic neurological or chronic disease, which looks at a long-term caregiving, and it comes with its own set of challenges. The second thing that we have been able to achieve is through the launch of the Caregiver Guide, we have been able to create a resource which is easy, simple to navigate, and informational, and made to be understood by a lay person like a family caregiver. Doesn't have a lot of jargon in it. We have been able to provide that resource, and like you said, Shankar, we will share it with all our chapters. We will create a resource section on our website. We will share it with all of you. So that's the second thing that we've been able to do. The third thing that I think we've been able to do is listen to the wonderful speakers like Dr. Desai, who's been absolutely amazing. I've heard a lot of talks on what he does and how he's joined the caregiver movement. And all the members in this, please just Google Dr. Nimesh G Desai, you will find him. I will be happy to share his email with you. You don't need to wait for MSSI to be connected with him. And also the second speaker, Bhavna. I think it has been most important for us in MSSI definitely to create webinars, to do these webinars, connect and provide relevant information to our members who are registered, sieving through a myriad of information, but just keeping it relevant. But what we have achieved today in this webinar is the ability for us to connect you, Bhavna, and our members who are here to go on your website, come on a podcast, be gentle warriors. We have been able to connect you to them and them to you. And together, if MSSI is just a catalyst, I think we have achieved tremendous amount of, we have achieved a lot, because that is only going to improve the quality of life. So these are the 3 takeaways that I tried to put, sum up, and we will explore possibilities. So what are the action in terms of, every caregiver is a very action oriented person. I can tell you that much. I don't know about multitasking. They have always got a checklist, ye karna hai. तो हम क्या करेंगे? हम explore करेंगे partnership किस तरह से करें, continued sustained engagement कैसे हो, किस तरह से हम एक meaningful engagement या project start करें कंट्री लेवल पे, पॉलिसी लेवल पे. इसको एक दिन में तो होने वाला है नहीं. ये हम किस तरह से अपने स्ट्रैटेजी प्लान में भी, अपने विजन डॉक्यूमेंट में इसको किस तरह से शामिल करें. Lastly, I would like to highlight the highlights of this World MS Day, which has been connections. And again, to simplify it, I think I am also getting ADHD or ADD or whatever, because I find it very easy to keep 1, 2, and 3. and after that I lose it. So what I have segmented is, we have been able to create awareness for MS through our wonderful activities done at the regional as well as the national level. I will not go into it because Shankar has already said that. We have been able to underpin everything that we do with advocacy and advocating for the rights of persons with MS through our national project. That has also been activated at the regional level. What is even more wonderful is that there are young MS persons who have become advocates, who were advocates of MS in their own ecosystem. But now we have connected with them, they have connected with us, so we have become a larger community. They continue to be advocates of MS and they continue to work with us. And I think it's only going to get better. And lastly, through all the webinars, through all the awareness, what we have been able to put forward is policy, reform, sensitizing implementers of policy. Eventually, we want to have timely intervention and access to treatment, knowledge, so that we can take informed decisions. It could be a caregiver, it could be an MS person, it could be whoever. So I think this has been pretty, a lot of information, but I have been able to put it in 3 bullets. And I will remember this, and I hope everybody remembers, but we have a recording. And so that's pretty much it. I hope, Shankar, I have been able to do justice, and speakers, I hope I've been able to capture the essence of whatever you have said. It's back to you, Shankar, to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Renuka. And I know that you speak from experience as a caregiver, and there's a lot more that we need to do. And I think this is very clear at the end of this session. And there were a lot of medical questions that were asked by our participants. So I would request you to please contact our local offices, whichever chapters are there. I'm sure they will connect you to the specialist, MS specialist, who can help you. In case you're still not connected with any chapters, you can write to us. Renuka, probably you can share your details on the chat. They can send out to you. In case you're not connected to chapters, we'll help you connect with the respective chapters. I know there are a lot of medical questions, but today was, as we had focused on the caregivers, we did not answer any of the sessions. So first of all, I'd like to thank Bhavna and Dr. Nimesh Desai for supporting us today. You are the the stars of this morning, and you made it happen. So thank you for adding value to our initiatives, to add value to the lives of the caregivers who are the backbone of the MS community. And I'd also like to thank Tanya, Mamta, Renuka for we have been on the chat and on the on the WhatsApp and on the calls throughout this last 2 months, planning and preparing for the various events. And I know it's been overwhelming because the kind of energy that everybody put in was so high that we had to really match up to the energies of the rest of the World MS Day team that we have. I'd like to thank Sri Kumar, Nofel, Vinay, Shafiq, Prasoon from Honeycomb for their support for that caregiver guide, for the quick turnaround. I would like to thank Mamta for all her support, making sure that we are on track and coordinating with all the chapters. Nazia, you are the superstar of World MS Day. We have grabbed the eyeballs of the entire world through your social media campaign work and the artwork that has come up with. So hats off to you, Nazia. Freyon, thank you so much for connecting with the celebrities and getting those videos. This really added star value to the World MS Day efforts. And I would like to call upon all the chapter representatives, Arun Mohan, Anjali, Bipasha, Garima, Javed, for all your support, Kavita Basin, Kirtana, Meena Gupta, Meenakshi, Ruchi, Shiv Pratap Singh, Pankaj, Seema Arora, Sanket, all of you are really the people who have been driving the World MS Day, and you have been rocking. So it's been a really fulfilling World MS Day event for me. And I'd like to also thank the YMSG team for doing their bit to make this, to get the youth involved. And I know there are a lot more people who have been part of this. I think I've just, kind of overwhelmed at this point of time. So thank you so much, everybody. And thank you all for those people who are able to log in today. And also for those of you who are watching on the Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much. And let's stay strong, and let's hope all this pandemic will go over soon. And before we all go, I would like that if we could all come on the video screen, and maybe just all of us have this, the heart sign. It will be a great way to end the World MS Day. So can we, probably remove the spotlight on me, and we can ask somebody to take a screenshot. So who's going to take a screenshot? I'll take the screenshot. I'll take the screenshot. I'll do it because I have to do it here. Okay, can I have a grid view? 1 minute. I'll have, just hold on, everybody. This is a group photo. Okay. And everybody smile. Say cheese. All right. Lovely. Hang on. There are lots more people. So I have to do this again. Okay. Video's on. Smile. Say cheese. Okay. Once again. Video's on. Smile and say cheese. Okay, so that's the thing. So that's such a lovely picture of all of us connected, and stay strong and stay connected. Wonderful. Have a great day. We have a full day full of events. We have a wonderful event in Delhi, which is coming up at 4:30 today. We have a CRC program happening at 3 p.m. So all this information is available on our website. Javed, could you please present our screen, which has got all the contacts of all the chapters, and you can see all our information on the website, Facebook, social media, on Twitter, Instagram. All the details of the rest of the programs for today is available. So let me just just brush through some of the events for today. There are plenty of events. Just give me a minute. I'll just, okay, so at, okay, so there was a parallel program happening in Sikkim right now by the CRC. There is a program happening right now. You can join there in Lucknow. CRC Lucknow is organizing one program. 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. we have CRC Davangere, who's organizing a program on awareness and World MS Day. 4:30 to 6 p.m. we have Mumbai chapter, and we have a program at 6:30 in the Global Choir. So join us, and on World MS Day, wish you all the very best and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.